Hi, and welcome back to the Invent Academy. My name is Radu, and today I will be showing you how to use the 3D tools available on the OnShape platform. Hopefully, by now you will have already watched my tutorial on 2D tools. If not, I definitely recommend you do so because it is absolutely impossible to use 3D tools if you do not know how to do 2D drawings yet. Because as you can expect, before you're able to build a 3D object, like a table for example, you need to draw it first in 2D and then you apply OnShape's 3D tools to create an actual object. Let's get started by clicking on the document that I've created for this tutorial, 3D Tools. We will start by creating a very simple sketch that we can work with. For example, in this case, I will build a sketch in the top plane that will look something like this. A circle on top of a rectangle. And then, if you remember, I showed you that there is a trim feature here which allows me to delete all of these inner lines so that I only have the outside perimeter left. Perfect. I can now exit my sketch and move back to the isometric view. The first and most important feature in 3D is the extrude feature. It is available in the top bar of OnShape or by accessing Shift E. Press on it at this point. The way extrusion works, if you can imagine it, it is like having a paper accordion and then pulling it up. It is as if we were able to pull the drawing that we have and make it go up, down, left, or right. However, remember, it will only move in directions normal to our plane, the plane that the sketch is in. It is very important that you know how to use the extrude feature, so I will spend a few minutes to talk about it. Within the Invent Academy, we will only be using the solid feature, so make sure solid is selected. Next, we have a few options underneath. New allows you to create a new part. It is as if you're creating a new object. Add and intersect work in similar ways where they allow you to connect geometry you already have connected to other parts that you've created. For example, you're trying to add, let's say, a cube on top of a cylinder. Remove, on the other hand, while add allows you to add material, remove works in the opposite way. It allows you to take material away from a part that you have created. But now, before we use any of these fancy options, let's just click on New. And then we're being told that we need to select the faces and sketch regions to extrude. In this case, I will just single click on my sketch over here. Now, OnShape generates a preview of what our object will look like. First, let's stick with the blind option, and then opposite direction, as you see, chooses which direction you're extruding in, while the depth allows you to select how tall you want the object to be from the starting plane. Let's say 10 inches. As you see, it is now extremely tall. We can change it to go downwards by pressing on opposite direction. However, OnShape has many more features, such as symmetric up to next, and all of these that you can play with. For now, I will only show you how to use the symmetric feature. With symmetric, as you can expect, the plane that the sketch is in becomes the middle, and then you can select how much you want to extrude from the top and how much you want to extrude from the bottom. In this case, let's say we want to extrude 2 inches from each direction. Perfect. I will now click on the tick mark and hide my plane so that we can see the object we've created. Good job on creating your first 3D object in OnShape. I will now go ahead and show you how to use more features. And something that is extremely interesting, if you remember last time I told you that you can create sketches on the top, front, or right planes. However, as it turns out, that's only part of the story because sketches, if you remember, the only condition there is that they need to be created on a flat surface. So, for example, while I'm not able to create a sketch on this curved part over here, I can definitely create a sketch on the top of my piece here, which is exactly what I will do now. I will right click on the top part of my piece and just say New Sketch. I will now move to the top view, and as you can see, OnShape zooms in to show you where you'll be drawing. Let's create a very simple polygon. Boom. Perfect. And now I will exit my sketch. Let's move back to the isometric view so that you can clearly see that on top of my part, I now have a new sketch that I can use to create more 3D geometry. The next thing I will show you is the Add feature. The Add feature, as I told you, allows you to create stuff on top or next to bodies you already have. So I will now select the polygon I have, and let's say I want to raise this by 4 inches this way. When I press Escape, you will now see that the two are joined, and under parts, as we expect, we only show one single part that is composed of both the first and the second extrusion. Let's say, however, that we want to change the second extrusion, change something about it. Therefore, we can right-click on Extrude To and click Edit, which makes us go back to the window that we just came from. Instead of saying add, that perhaps we want to add something on top of this part, let's assume we want to remove something. How does removing work? Removing is just like adding, except instead of adding material, you're taking material away. You need to make sure, however, that you are selecting the right direction. In this case, we're being shown that we're taking material away from the top part of the object, while, however, we only have material underneath the object. For that reason, I will just press opposite direction. And as you can see, you can now kind of see a hollow part inside. Let's say that we want to make a blind extrude cut to a depth of only 2 inches. This, as you'd expect, will make a hole inside our object which will be 2 inches big. And if we move to the top, you'll see that this center square is now empty. There's nothing going through it, which means that our whole creation process was successful. But we do not need to make the hole go all the way through. For example, instead of selecting 2 inches, we can also select 1 inch, and then we'll click enter, and we'll see that even though the hole does start, it does not go all the way through because we can still see there is material inside our part. I will now delete this feature to show you how to use the Revolve. Revolves are the second most important 3D tools you need in OnShape. Let's click on it. The way Revolve works is it takes a sketch and then it rotates it around an axis. As you can imagine, you can create very interesting circular features. For example, something like a wine glass or perhaps a bottle can both very easily be created using a Revolve feature. However, things do not need to be this traditional. For example, I can select the face, so let's select this sketch, and then I'll click on Add to make sure we're adding something to the geometry that we currently have, And for revolve axis, I will choose this axis over here. As you can see, we now have a cylindrical feature inserted on the side and on the top of our part. This, once again, is achievable using the revolve feature. Just like Extrude, Revolve has multiple options. We do not necessarily need to add, but we can also use the remove feature, which in this case will create a cut, a circular cut inside of our object. Furthermore, so that you better understand the way it is used, I will show you what it would look like when I change the revolve axis. Last time I chose this axis here. This time I will choose this axis here. And as you can see, it is probably more difficult to picture, but you now have a hole inside your part, which resembles a cylinder moved around this axis that goes from this point to this point. Once again, it is essential that you know how to use both the extrude feature and the revolve feature. Many of these options here can very easily be played with without many consequences. For example, this is the pattern option, which, just like the sketch option for patterns, allows you to replicate an object multiple times for easy design. Next, we have the mirror, which I can very quickly show you. For example, for the entities to mirror, I will click on part 1, and then mirror plane. I can select this edge here, and at this point we've mirrored the object off of this plane to create this very interesting feature. Furthermore, we have options to create fillets, which, just like the way they work in sketches, they round edges. So for example, I can select all of these edges on top. I'm sorry. Perfect. And then the radius allows you to select just how much you want it to be rounded. With a 0.1 radius, which is a smaller radius, you will see that they're less rounded. While with a bigger radius, such as 0.3, you will see that the rounding is a lot more present. Perfect. And now, if we move around, you will see the rounded edges of this feature that we created. Finally, before I end this tutorial, I would like to show you something very important and make a point that is essential to working well with CAD. The way CAD works is you always start with a 2D sketch and then you use 3D tools. However, there is never a single way to make something in CAD. And the following really quick exercise will show you that very clearly. When I ask you to create a cylinder, hopefully by now you will think of two ways to do this. Let me do the first way. I will start by creating a sketch on the top plane, using a circle, exiting the sketch, returning to the isometric view, and now using the extrude function to create a circle that is 2 inches tall. Perfect. We now have a cylinder, and we can see in the build tree that it is labeled as part number 2. Let's hide part number 1 for more clarity. Perfect. Now, I will show you how to create the exact same cylinder, but using the revolve pattern, because as you can see, cylinders are very circular. It is usually a great indicator that you're able to use the revolve efficiently if the part has a single axis of symmetry, which in the case of the cylinder is its center axis. Now, let me show the front plane, and let me move to the front plane to sketch something on it. I will sketch a rectangle on the front plane. And as you can see, if I select the Revolve feature and I press on the face that I created and select a Revolve axis like this, you will see that I have created a very similar cylinder. However, this time using the Revolve feature. The nice thing about CAD is that there isn't a single way to do something, and there isn't ever a perfect way to do something. Sometimes, however, there are quicker ways to do things, and most importantly, it all has to do with preference. If you like to use the extrude feature more, you might find it easier to create the first cylinder. However, if you like using the revolve feature more, you might find it easier to create a second cylinder. I recommend that before you move on to the project, you play around with 2D tools and 3D tools more, as they say, practice makes permanent. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and make sure to ask us if you have any questions. Bye!